Hi again. Okay, I was trying to unmute myself, Julieta, because that's the thing. So I'm Dimitris Malas again. I'm journalist for CN Greece. Who have now is another fireside chat, which is I think very very interesting because we're doing the theme of the subject of this fireside chat. Sorry for that. Is how to make a remarkable stance in the tech circle, and we have with us. I think I have to pronounce that right. It's Julieta or something else because usually I'm
Julieta.
messing that. Julieta. Okay, perfect with that. Julieta del Rio, and she's head of IT sourcing North America for North America for at Ericsson. Okay, one of the largest telecom equipment, and not I think will be one of the largest tech companies in the world. Julieta leads Ericsson's IT sourcing in North America, including industrialization of new hardware and software solutions, emerging technologies, and 5G deployments for the North American market. That's a big market, Julieta, okay? And you've been with Ericsson for more than 9 years, and you've done, if someone sees your CV, you've done a lot. Julieta is a data-driven leader with more than 23 years of experience in telecommunications, energized by diversity and challenges, sustainable change, and adapting reality to new situations. I was reading that from your profile at the website of PLG Disrupt here, but I think everyone can understand that if you are working for Ericsson, you have such high place there. That has a lot to me. So, and I will start with that. Can you please tell us a few things about your personal journey in tech so far?
Of course. First of all, thank you, Dimitris and PLG Disrupt for the opportunity today. And just a few things about my personal journey. I was actually born and raised in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, and then came to the United States to study, as well as a year abroad in France. So once I graduated, I actually started with Mabel and was responsible for building a 25,000 kilometer subsea fiber optic ring around Latin America to bring South America into the 21st century. After that, I actually started working for a wireless operator, being responsible for building their cell sites in the southern United States for a few years. And then finally coming to Ericsson, where I was responsible for building networks to the tier 1 operators, and currently now as the head of IT sourcing for North America. So basically responsible for everything that our 5G networks need from an IT perspective. So that's a little bit about myself and my personal journey over the last 20 plus years.
Okay, you know what is really interesting also as well, that you're a female in a male-dominated, or at least I think it's a male-dominated technology sector. Is it male-dominated technology sector?
I would say yes. Just as an anecdote, when I started, I was literally the only young female in the room, and everyone who worked for me was male and over 40. So that was my first introduction into technology. But what I would say is over the last 20 years or so, our tech industry has improved a little bit. With that said, it is very male dominated. I would say from a startup perspective, 93% of all the funds that are expensed are given to men. So women aren't even given the opportunity to prove themselves, right? So that's a startling example. And women still are heavily underrepresented and underpaid by around 20% in the tech industry. So opportunities from day one aren't as available. And then this translates throughout your career, not growing as quickly and not getting to those higher positions as quickly as men do.
What are the reasons for that? What do you believe? What do you have seen? You have been 23 years around, so I think you have more experience than me, which I'm a male, I'm a man. So Okay,
Absolutely.
I honestly believe that there should be more women in the technology sector in the sense that women give a different perspective sometimes and to solve the problems different than men. So that's a very unique advantage that the company, when the company has more women, it's much has a bigger advantage than other male-dominated technology companies. I really believe that. But what are the reasons for that?
I would say several things. One, obviously, when you hire, you tend to hire similar to yourself. So if
Yeah.
the majority of the hiring managers happen to be men, then it's highly likely that that would continue. What I would also say is that one of the reasons is that women are very hesitant to consider a career in tech, even though they may be well fit and or have the great skills to be able to perform. But because there is a lack of role models, then it's harder for women to say, oh, okay, I want to go into the tech sector and I want to be in that industry, right? You also mentioned that having women at the table or in the group makes a difference. Diversity and inclusion, absolutely. The more diverse that your team is, the more ideas and different ideas that will come up. So, from our perspective, we are missing out from that talent and from the ideas that come from women if they're not included in those discussions.
Okay, how we're going to change that?
A few
You
items.
said the role models. Okay, fine. Okay, more role models, but it's like the chicken and the egg. If there
How
are
do we
no,
it?
yeah, we have to change that. Okay.
Absolutely. So the first thing is we need to remove this self-doubt from young girls. So it starts at a very young age, right? And encourage them into what we call STEM courses: science, technology, engineering, math. And then reinforce that technology is a great career option and within reach for our women, and to embrace being able to get into technology. The other piece is also we need men, just like yourselves, to embrace the thought of having women and giving them the opportunity to be able to be part of their teams. So it's two things. One, starting at a very young age, how do we get women or young girls to get into and be enthused with technology? And remember, in technology companies, it's not, you don't just have to be an engineer. Myself, I'm an economist, but there are numerous organizations within a company that you could be part of within a tech company. And so making sure that our men are supportive and that they're welcoming of women as true allies that they can be. I think that that would be a really good first way for us to be able to change that. And for companies to also, I won't say force, but to encourage the hiring and promoting of women overall.
Personal opinion. I'm talking about personal opinion now. Okay, fine. But I think it's not wise or it's not right, at least my personal, to force companies to hire more women. It's much better to encourage them, okay,
Absolutely.
and to convince them that it's much better. For example, myself as a father, because you said something about young girls. Okay, I have a 17-year-old daughter. I've mentioned about her before in another panel discussion, but I remember that 5 years, 6 years ago, I encouraged her to try and start, learning how to code. Okay, and what I said to her is that you don't need you have to learn how to code, not just because to be a developer, but because you have to understand coding in order to progress in the future and to have a career development. You need to know coding. That's something. Okay, so I believe that that's something that also it's more a social issue as well, besides encouraging and bringing motives. We have to change our how we're behaving about that. Okay,
Uh,
so yeah.
No, absolutely. I was just going to chime into what you're saying and add on to that, where we need to encourage our young girls that tech is fun, right? How do we continue, say, in the sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, to get into tech? Because generally, girls are really good at math and they're
Yeah.
very good at science. And then all of a sudden, well, math is no longer cool. And so we move into other um, eh, subjects in school, right? And it's how do we change that? I think that that's the most important piece.
Yeah, and you mentioned also role models, which I also believe that it's very, very important. And I want to ask about that. In order to have role models, women, female role models, what are you proposing to women who want to stand out in the tech sector and besides have a really good career or making their own companies or whatever, becoming also role models for the young girls or for other women in order, to move on and to embrace tech and be part of the tech sector? Okay, because
Absolutely.
that's also a problem. Okay, sometimes you don't find enough women, even if you're a tech company. Now I'm becoming, devil's advocate, but sometimes even if you want to have, okay, I want to hire my 30-40% of my people to be women, to my employees, but I cannot find it more women. Perhaps that's also a problem sometimes. Okay, so what are you proposing to them to stand out?
Yeah, so standing out in the tech sector, of course, is a big challenge, right? So, for some advice for women and things that I have done in the past personally is to take on challenging assignments that are outside of your comfort zone, right? So volunteer for when there's a new project, or recommend to your manager to be taken into consideration for some of these important projects that are coming up. You mentioned mentoring. I would say for us women, it is super important for us to become mentors of the young ladies that are coming up in the ranks. Not only being mentors, but I think another piece that is super important is being a sponsor, because you need sponsors to be able to talk about you or recommend you to others within your organization or within your network, right? So I think that that is very important. And the other advice that I would say, like you mentioned to your young daughter, to learn how to code. For us, it's make sure that you continuously learn and continuously stay on top of what is going on in this industry and keeping up to date, especially because everything is changing so rapidly. Keeping up and learning and understanding and knowing what's going on around your industry is super, super important.
So yeah, but that's also something that applies to men as well, because
Absolutely.
we also have to upskill ourselves and be, it's not just women about that. Okay, it's everybody at this point. We're talking that in a previous panel about career development, and we're talking that you always need to upskill. So that's also the same thing for all people,
Correct.
at least in my personal opinion. But you're right also. So mentoring and becoming an okay and become
Mentoring and sponsoring, right? I think that the sponsoring piece is also very important. To have someone who will vouch for you, speak for you, and recommend you. Because at higher levels, let's say when leaders are talking, hey, I have this project, I'm looking for someone who might be very good. Do you know of someone? Sponsor a lady or recommend them for that potential opportunity.
if she can do it, why not?
Absolutely.
That's my opinion as well. Okay, if she can do it, doesn't matter if you're a female or a male.
Yes.
Someone has to do the job. Okay, doesn't matter the sex in that sense. Anyway, but at Ericsson, you're in a, you do a lot of things. That being in an organization that embraces the women in tech movement, what would you suggest to companies that need to create a program to actively support female executives? What companies should do?
So two things, and I'll speak specifically to what we do here at Ericsson. I actually happen to be the co-chair of Women of Ericsson Employee Resource Group, and so this is an organization, all volunteers, where we work on hiring, promoting, growing, and retaining women. How? Through educational sessions, through networking, also showcasing our women talent, not only inside of the company, but outside of the company, and doing what we call our signature series events, where we invite an executive leader, a woman executive leader, into a panel, and we have a candid conversation for about an hour, where we invite all of our ERG members, which are around like 850 right now, to come and listen and get some great advice and tips as to what they could do. And this is a really great way to showcase, one, our women, two, look at someone that has been able to grow within the company and see yourself as a potential, that's something that I could do when I grow up. So we're trying to show our role models overall. So one of the things, as you mentioned, what can companies do? These, even if it's a grassroots initiative, as a women organization or a women group, you don't need a lot of funds. You can get together, you can have great conversations, great topics, and just starting a group where women can actually talk to each other about similar experiences that they have had. How do you deal with difficult situations that may happen at the workplace? And just encouraging and asking for advice when sometimes you don't know what to do in a specific situation. But our ERG has been in existence now for about 4.5 years. And it definitely has improved the culture within the company on what we do for our women. And not to say, we do have 7 different employee resource groups. So it's not just women, but we're trying to embrace diversity and inclusion overall. So we have our African American Alliance, we have LGBTQ&I, we have our Latinos Plus, we have our Asian Connections of Ericsson, we also have our veterans and our next generation of future leaders. So a very well-rounded group.
Do you, just out of curiosity here, is it something that it should be sponsored by a company's management, or is it something that female executives should do by themselves? Say, hey, get around and talk.
Yeah, it's both. So originally, this was a grassroots initiative, right? So women in leadership and by women executives. We now have the sponsorship of our CEO for North America. So it does come from the top, and we do have that buy-in and that sponsorship, if you will. And so we actually get to speak with him once a month and talk about our issues and what we want to see in the company and how do we affect change. So it's actually a really good way to hear from our employees from the bottom up, and then hearing from our leadership down.
In general, and in your experience, do the leadership hears you? Meaning, what I mean is that sometimes I have seen in my career, at least, that a lot of initiatives from the leadership were made, just to do it, and they didn't care. Check the box, yeah, exactly. Okay, we're doing, the social responsibility stuff and stuff like that. Usually, I'm very, cautious about that. When I hear about these things, a lot of times as journalists, I'm a little bit more cautious than other people around that, because I really need to see the results, and I'm not so sure sometimes that it's just checking the box, or they are really, really interested in that and they're doing it by their heart. So I don't know.
And that's a great point. And I would say in our particular case, it is genuinely noticed, and there is a true interest in making a difference. The culture at our company has changed significantly over the last few years, right? We have our slogan called Ericsson Awesome, and it has transcended everything that we do. And now that we're about to come back to the office early next year, we're trying to think of, okay, how do we embrace everyone, and how do we get people to start working together again? And I would say that that culture has definitely changed, and our ERGs have been a big part of that change and transformation over the last few years.
Okay, let's answer now. I need an answer to the question that was in this fireside chat, meaning how to make a remarkable stance in the tech circle. Okay, let's round it up a little bit.
Absolutely. First few things. I would say always be true to yourself and bring your authentic self to work, right? All women have great strengths. Don't be afraid of stepping up, asking questions, and continue to challenge the status quo. And don't forget as well to give opportunities to that young talent that is coming up in the organization. Giving them the chance to be remarkable, just like you are. And you never know, that one opportunity that you give to a woman might make a big difference in their career, right? So what you want to do is, when you look back 20 years later, make sure that you had choices when moving from one location or from one opportunity to another. Don't just go with the flow, and just be yourself. And when people realize that you are bringing your entire self to work, they will notice the type of work that you can do and that you will make a big difference.
Something tells me that you are doing that stuff, that you're becoming a role model and you're sponsoring a lot of women in Ericsson organization. You're doing that actively, and you really liked it. That's my perception so far. I haven't seen you before, but from the talk that we have, it's what I get, and it's really, really important that to becoming role models for other. What you said about role models is really, really important. That's true.
And thank you for that, Dimitris. I think I was having a conversation with someone very recently, and I said, I think I'm getting old because now a lot of young, both men and women, are reaching out and asking for advice. So I think we're doing something right when you're being sought for advice, and just to be able to guide and mentor. I wish I would have had someone to be able to do what I am doing 20 years ago. Right? Because I was totally on my own, and thankfully I had a great role model, which was my dad, and he was the person that I would go and ask and seek advice every time I was in a hard place. But here I am, still doing okay.
Okay, Julieta, thanks very much. That was a really, really interesting conversation, and continue your work and what you're doing as a role model. I really, really believe that we need more women in the tech sector. Okay, I really, really believe that. Sometimes you women have a different approach, and sometimes it's really more interesting than that stuff. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you, Dimitris, and thank you, PLG, for your support, and good luck with the rest of the sessions.
Thanks very much. Okay, and thanks everybody for listening to us. I hope it was a nice discussion. I really enjoyed it. Julieta, I think, enjoyed it too, so thanks very much.
Thank you so much.